Classical musical anyone? Welcome to Bandwidth, your man Alex Smith. Hi!
Hooray!
Don't sound too excited. Your recent musical, Empty Chair, has just come to a close after a cyclone and the power pole lit on fire at the theatre. So you only had a weekend to perform it, but it just came to a close. And the album that you just released, written into the musical, so there was an album that was written into a musical that was based on the song that the album was written from.
So album had song. So the album Empty Chair had the song Empty Chair, and then I named the album after the song Empty Chair, and then the show was named after the album Empty Chair and was a launch of the album Empty Chair.
Whoa. You said it was like if Inside by Bo Burnham was written by Wario.
Yeah. I'm Bo Burnham's Wario, because he's obviously very offline, and he creates his art and it's very good, and and now he's moved to film, and he's very tall and handsome and skinny, and then my stuff is I'm very chronically online. I'm like, hey, what's up? This is what I'm doing right now.
The release of my new single. Oh, it'd be helpful if I knew. Oh God, I hate marketing.
If you were wondering, I'm in the shops at the moment, and then I also take a long time to make things. And if you put Bo and I next to each other, you'd be like, oh, yeah.
In the show, you have a fat monologue about your love of the Goofy movie.
Yeah. This is the story of a single father who is desperately trying to reconnect with his son, and a young boy who believes that his father embodies everything he hates about himself. This is such a deep story to give to Goofy the fucking dog. Disagreements are a natural and healthy part of any relationship, and that doesn't mean that they don't love you anymore. This strikes such a perfect balance between cartoon and drama. Beauty and the Beast is trying to look hot while crying. Goofy movie is Looney Tunes with drunk D&Ms. It goes wackier than conventional Disney. It gets more real than conventional Disney. And it's got more heart in a single frame than the majority of anything else they've ever produced. I'm guilty of being a grump sometimes. But when I think of this film, it makes me want to call my dad. A movie that makes you want to be better to your dad is a good movie to exist in this world. I was invited to a cool dad's party, and I went as Goofy because he's the best dad in any media ever.
So you sat down and you wrote that monologue, you rehearsed the monologue, you learnt it, and you performed it.
So
is it you got daddy issues, or what's going on?
Yeah, probably. But I do love mine, Papa. I love him. But that monologue was actually, I was on another show called the Disney vs. Disney Debates, and you had to argue that, it was like a tournament-style thing to say which was the best Disney movie. And I beat a lot of movies, saying that the Goofy movie was the best. And so when it came time to do this one, I was like, I've already argued this. And so took all of my arguments, made it one ridiculous page-and-a-half monologue, and then burnt it into my mind.
Yeah, BPD, in your experience of that, how did you go writing about something that's so heavy? How did you keep yourself grounded? Because I know writing about trauma, especially, is a nightmare, and it can be really triggering. So how was that?
I think, because obviously I actually wrote the whole album a few years ago.
Yeah, this has been in the works for 3 years, right?
Yeah, well, because I did Grognacks for a uni assignment.
Because I'm Grognacks, devourer of worlds. I cannot be satiated, and you know I fucking hate it.
And that was around when I got diagnosed, and that was 2018. There's definitely a bit in 2020 when I was like, I need to finish this fucking album, and I'm going to have it finished by this time. And that was when I wrote the majority of the songs. And I think my process, maybe not necessarily the most healthy, but I just go there. I just go to that place, and I'm like, I'm gonna get back out, and it's gonna be fine. But I give myself a deadline where I'm like, you need to write it by here. These are the songs you need to write. And then I just get it done, and it isn't always great. But that's part of it, right? I think 3 or 4 people per show have been like, yeah, I think I have this. I'm like, well, then, look into it, because maybe you do, but also you might not.
Do you reckon it's harmful, self-diagnoses, or do you think that maybe it's good that they're thinking more about mental health in that very open way?
I think it's good to self-reflect, and to, if you do identify with the stuff in the show, then even if you don't have BPD, you probably got something you got to work out, right? You got something you got to talk to somebody about. Yeah.
Because you play yourself in the musical. Do you find that that really helped to express how you were feeling about BPD? Or do you reckon if you did it again, you would have made it more of a character or a persona? Or do you find that it was a persona?
It sounds like it would be really easy playing yourself, but it's actually really hard. Because with a character in a show, you're like, all right, this is Mr. Cobblebottom, and he's the greedy old miser, and his function is to do this, and then he stands like this. And like all the other characters in the show, it was like, oh yeah, this is their function. But I'm just like me being me, and like I don't think about being me. So when I had to be me, I was like, all right, how do I walk? How do I stand?
As yourself.
Yeah, how do I be me? I struggled with a lot because it'd be like, the psych would say a bunch of stuff like, oh, yeah, it's commonly, autism and CPTSD, all these kind of things. And I'd be like, does it get misdiagnosed a lot? And it always just felt like such a thing which I just wouldn't say. And it felt so weird to say that in a natural way. And I'm sure I must have because I wrote it, but having to go back, like sometimes if you print out a transcript of all the things you say in a conversation, if you read it back, you're like, that's a weird thing to say intentionally, I've written a lot of stuff where it's not me, to clarify. I have written shows that aren't me and have other characters. I think because this was like the Man Alex Smith album, and specifically because it's BPD, which is the thing that I have that I'm talking about, and Slow Burn was like a story about a relationship that I was in and I went through. It felt important for those to be me telling it, because I think a lot of the interest and the strength, there's got to be a better word, is being like, wow, this is the person who went through it telling me their story, rather than just being like, hi, I'm Daryl, and this is some stuff that happened, and you're like, okay,
Yeah. Do you think if you were to write some other musical, you would keep doing you, or you would like take this and move to a different character?
I have other musicals in mind, and it's not like, and also I'm the main character. Like, no, I definitely want to move away from.
Self-insert fan fiction.
Like, I really enjoyed this format, and people seem to be really receptive to your Man Alex Smith albums being on stage.
Yeah.
And I'd love to write another show, maybe with the Man Alex Smith character on stage. But I don't know if it's going to be like, here's a bunch of trauma that I did.
If there was to be a movie, Empty Chair, who would play you? Or would you play yourself?
Oh, I mean, I guess it depends when it's made. If it's made next year, I'll be me. But fucking 80-year-old Jack Black.
Hell yeah.
Old man.
So you've said that Slow Burn, you don't like Slow Burn, you don't like. But what have you taken from that experience of like writing the musical for the first time, putting it on, and now doing it again? What have you taken from that experience that you were like, shit, I hate it, to now being like, oh, it's actually being receptive and it's being really.
Slow Burn, I learnt so much. Empty Chair, obviously, the first draft wasn't tremendous. But the first draft of Empty Chair was better than it would have been because of what I learned from Slow Burn. Like, Slow Burn was very much, it was an album that existed, which it was a concept album. It had a story that if you knew about and if you decided to dig through, you'd get a better experience listening to it. But it was very much it's an album, and now it's a show. And especially because the first draft, which is, I think, what we ended up striding out on stage, was very much, we sing a song, Alex does a monologue. We sing a song, Alex does a monologue. We had this big, beautiful ensemble, but they just were in the background, and they would sing when the songs happened, and I would, for Empty Chair, I was like, I want to have a big, beautiful ensemble. I want to give them something to do. Yeah. I want them to be a part of the show. I want them to tell the story. I want it to be fun to be involved in. And, like, I don't want to just have a monologue in between the songs. I want to, like, first draft, write the monologue. Be like, this next song is about this. This is why I wrote it. But then show that. Don't just have me say it. Like, what am I trying to say about this song? And then show the character so the audience can be like, oh, this next song is about feeling abandoned. And,
When you were doing auditions and when you were trying to get the show running, how was pitching that? Were there anyone that was like, oh, I've been through this? Or were they all just kind of learning as the audience are learning through Alex Smith's journey?
Only one person who was involved in the whole thing actually had BPD, aside from myself. Aside from that, no one came out to me and were like, I also have BPD. So I think everyone was just learning as we went. And people were like, I learned a lot.
You also speak about asexuality, and you make it very important to distinguish that it isn't anything to do with BPD.
I think the reason that we made it clear that it was a me thing, not a BPD thing, was that the majority of the audience don't know anything about BPD. And I think if we're like, yeah, I don't really feel like fucking ever, people would be like, oh, so people with BPD are asexual. That's interesting. And it felt important to be like, oh, just so by the way, like this is a me thing. And we even have the line, that's a you thing, not a BPD thing. And then the flip side of that, one of the traits of BPD is like reckless sex, having a lot of reckless sex, unprotected sex, or just sex that you don't care about. It's one of the things. And while I don't necessarily agree with it for the cut and dry of like, this is a show, this is not what we're focusing on, this is the thing, I think an audience would be like, oh, a guy, they fuck. And so it felt like an important thing to be like, hey, so this character has sex that he doesn't want. That's why it's going against his needs and his wants. And if you just have a guy having sex and you're like, oh yeah, well, guys fuck, like that's normal. That's not a particularly irresponsible thing. And it's like, no, this character doesn't like to have sex, doesn't want to have sex. And so them having sex is them going against their needs. And that's the BPD symptom there. So that's why we went into that.
Oh yeah, there's like a big misunderstanding that asexuals just despise sex, or like they're sex repulsed, but like it's such a broad spectrum.
There's you got like demisexual and gray sexual and all that stuff. And
do you prefer performing and writing for concerts and live music, or for the stage, musicals?
When I was a kid, I loved performing. I loved being in musicals. I wanted to do that as a career. And then through musicals, I met some lovely people. And then they were having like fundraising gigs to, put on Shane Anderson was fundraising for his feature film. And they had like a gig called the Monster Prom. And I was like, oh, I've been playing guitar, I've been writing songs. And then I performed the first gig and I was like, oh, that was really fun, I want to do that. And then just kept doing the musical theater thing. And I was like, I want to be a musical theater performer. And then there's kind of a bit where every performer reaches where you realize just how much of casting is like, we need someone this height, this size, and if you don't fit that, too bad. It didn't help that I fucking sucked, but like, that was what I was thinking at the time. And so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna make it in theater, so I might as well just, do something else. And I had just got like my first proper job, and if you've seen that meme where it's like, the autism is so bad that I had to follow my dreams. Like, I remember my mind broke and was like, oh, I spend my time at this place to make money to pay for the place where I sleep, which isn't even any good, and I hate, this is life? This can't be life. And so I was like, what do I want to do? I guess I want to write songs. And so I tried pursuing singing career. And I put musicals aside for many, many years. And obviously it still kind of came through in the music, and people were like, that's good. And I was like, oh, I'm a bit more show-tuney, and then a bit more show-tuney. And then like 3 years ago, I went for Trail to Oregon, because that's a show I love, with Left of Right. And it was just really fun. And I was like, I love this. I love working with a group of people to make a thing. And it's not about the money. It's not about the money. It's just, we're all here to put in the hours to make a fun thing. And then I just kept doing shows, and then the shows helped people come to the gigs because they knew me from the shows. And
But you find it more rewarding than like the shorter process of song, concert, song, gig?
Like, there was times where I could be like, hey guys, I'm doing a gig, and like 50, 60 people would show up. I'd play my songs and I'd be like, this is fucking sick. And then you'd go to bed at night. Something about like your ears are ringing from the crowd cheering your name. You're the best. Everyone in the room wants to talk to you. And then I would go home alone.
And the imposter syndrome kicks in.
Just in my bed. And then I'd get up like 2 hours later and I'd clean floors at Kohl's.
Sometimes, even with this show, I'm like, why am I here? What am I doing?
Wow. That, you remember I was like, my brain broke. I was like, working this job to pay for the place. I reached an ultimatum. I was like, if this is what life is, I don't want it. I'm going to go for my dream, and if that doesn't work, then I'll roll credits on this number. I was like, go for my dreams, and if my dreams don't work, then we're out of here. And I've just kind of kept going, you know?
Spite.
Yeah. I was like,
Great.
well, I'm still alive.
If you want to succeed, do it out of spite.
I remember that. Yeah, probably not the best way to have done it.
You've done the musical recently, and that was your most recent project, so I thought we would plug that. And we are in the theatre that it was performed in. Yippee, jolly good. We love Phoenix Ensemble. But you started off doing regular music, I guess. Yeah. What genre? You've really just said every genre under the sun, really. You've done country, you've done rock ballads, you've done musical theatre.
Yeah.
So how would you describe yourself now?
Now I lean into, I say, genre hopping in my thing. And it's mainly because I just want to do whatever the fuck I want. In Slow Burn, I justified it as like, oh, it's like, you know, using... it didn't even make sense. I was like, it's like you're using humor as a defense mechanism. And so, you know, you're like, oh, I'm a cowboy talking about this thing. Isn't that funny? I just want to write the music I want to write. Yep. And people were like, so are you like what is your genre? And it fucks up the algorithm because they're like, so we're going to show you to all these country artists, people who like country music. And then it's the worst of every world because the people who just listen to one song are like, oh, I guess this is just a country artist. I don't like country, so they're not going to listen. The people who do like country will hear it and be like, oh, what else does he do? And they're like, oh, well, I only like country. And then they're going to leave.
That's like content creation, because like if I'm going to post something, if I don't pigeonhole myself into a niche, then no one's going to want it. No one's going to want to see the content. Yeah. Like if I don't make bandwidth specifically about musicians, say, then no one's going to watch it because it'll just be too diverse. But then I don't want to pigeonhole myself into just musicians because Brisbane has such a diverse arts community. So what do you do?
I don't know what it is. Well, I do. It's the algorithm. But like, I don't know what it is about the internet being like, oh, you did this. Do that forever. That's who you are now. That's what you do forever now. Like with Empty Chair, I was able to skirt it again because I was like, well, BPD is about distorted self-image. You don't really know who you are, so it makes sense for all the songs to be different on this as well. But I'm just going to do it again next time because I like to write the songs I want to write. I like everyone has an eclectic music taste, and so I just write songs that I want to write, and then I put them together.
Okay, Empty Chair is now available for streaming on all the music stuff, all the platforms. And will it be available to watch maybe potentially in the future?
I believe it's going to be a patron exclusive.
So if they want to have a little behind the scenes look, they can follow you
on
at
Your Man Alex Smith.
Which is also your Instagram.
Yes, and also my TikTok and everything. It's the brand.
Your Man Alex Smith. Our man, Alex. I don't know where I was going with that bit. That was a stupid bit. All right. Anyway, go follow Alex Smith. Thank you so much for joining me on Bandwidth. Yay!
Yay!
All right. Bye! I never know how to wrap these things up.